was a full moon that day, and then that night I lost my cervical seal. And then we had about a day of very sporadic contractions. Nothing was, timeable really, or, there was no real flow to them. Then at about midnight the next morning, so it was Friday of the day I would have been 42 weeks exactly. At about midnight, I was starting to feel real contractions, and I knew that something had changed. And we called my midwife and let her know that that was, happening, that contractions were about 5 minutes apart, and they were consistent. And so she told me to go ahead and get into a warm bath and see if that would slow them down or speed them up. And so I got in the bath, and they stayed about the same. And I was expecting the Hollywood, water breaking situation, and it just never happened. My water didn't break, and my baby hadn't dropped, the typical dropping down, feeling like you're holding a bowling ball between your legs. None of that had ever happened, and she was still sitting very high. And I thought it was strange because I was having such strong contractions, and my water wasn't breaking, and she was still up very high. And so I spent probably the next 12 hours until about noon just having really strong contractions, but it didn't feel like it was hardly going anywhere. My home birth midwife was hesitant to check, to do vaginal exams because of the risk of infection when you're, breaching that. And so she only checked me about 2 times. And so the first time she checked me was when she first arrived at about 3 a.m. And I was at about a 2 or a 3. And then she checked again, probably around noon, and I was still at 5 centimeters, but I felt like I had really gone through the ringer. And she realized that my baby's head was stuck on my pubic bone, and that was causing her not to press on the sac to burst the water, and that was what was causing, everything to not really move forward. So I was told to do some kind of elevated lunges, to put my foot up on a kind of low dresser and lunge into that and see if we could get her to shift. As well as my dad's a chiropractor, and he was present at the birth. And so he was able to adjust me and do some hip squeezes, and I was told to labor backwards on the toilet, anything that would kind of shift the way that my hips were and open up my pelvis to allow the baby to descend. And eventually, through all of those kind of methods, we finally were able to get my water to break right about the time that I was in transition. So my water broke, and I began to vomit. And then I told my midwife that it was time to check me because I felt like I was getting close. And she checked me, and I was at 9 centimeters. And so I decided to get into the bathroom tub because I wanted to deliver in the water. And so I went ahead and got in the tub, and it was about another hour before my daughter was born at 4:53 p.m. that day. But so I pushed for about an hour, and she was born at 4:53, and she was 9 pounds and 6 ounces. And so she was a big baby. She had gotten stuck, and she was just taking her dear sweet time to be born. But as soon as she was born, we lifted her out of the water, and she was healthy, crying immediately, and was just rooting for the breast immediately after being born. So it was a really good delivery that, even through kind of some of the obstacles of the labor of her getting stuck and how long it was taking, that she was still able to be born safely, and I was still able to follow the preferences that I had for my